Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of The Articulate Fly, and we're back with another Southwest Virginia fishing report with Matt Reilly. How you doing, Matt?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good, Marvin. How are you?
Just trying to stay out of trouble. I know you've been tying quite a few flies these days.
Yeah, whoever gets this box of flies that are sanitizing or something, because I've been sanding my fingers bloody, making cork poppers the last couple of days. So hopefully nobody gets hurt in the process.
Yeah, well, I mean, looking at your weather, I know you were kind of on the tail of the weather system that came through, but your temperatures were kind of in that super cold trough that we usually have for a couple weeks every winter where, your lows are in the upper teens and the low 20s, which probably means not a good idea to fish and a really good idea to tie flies.
Yep, just about. I mean, like we were talking before, I think we haven't had a ton of volume, but snow just about every day for the last week or so, it seems. And I think the high today was in the high 20s. Supposed to warm up the next couple of days, but going into next week, we're back in the high teens, low 20s again, and looking at a couple inches of snow and rain and whatever we end up getting. So it's a dynamic time out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because people are certainly still thinking of fishing. We have a question from Preston, and he wanted to get your thoughts on larger tributaries to the New River in Southwest Virginia that hold smallmouth during the spawn.
Yeah. I'm going to start off by saying most of them or all of them. Smallmouth, just very basically are very, very basically moving sort of shallower, across the gradient from deeper, slower water in the wintertime to slower shallower water with good spawning structure and water in the springtime. And the New River is nice in the sense that it has spawning habitat spread throughout. It's a very structure-filled river. We have lots of big backwaters and islands and ledge systems and boulder gardens and all that kind of thing that make for good spawning habitat. But some of those fish will end up pushing up into some of those larger tributaries as well, where there's, if there's good spawning habitat present. And so all of the major ones, most of the major ones have resident populations that may or may not move out in the wintertime to overwinter in the deeper, main river. But almost all the main ones, up in the upper river, you have Little River, you have Big Reed Island Creek, Reed Creek, and then on the lower, you have the other Little River in Radford and Snowville. You have Big Walker Creek and Wolf Creek, and all of those will, have a number of fish in them. But the main thing you should be looking for is good spawning habitat. And again, that's just water that is protected from current. So, like I said before, big ledge systems with slack water behind them, bouldery sections of the river with slack water behind them, where you have points coming out from the river and not necessarily an eddy where you have swirling current, but water that's just stagnant behind it. Generally less than, 4 or 5 feet of water, with sort of a cobbly or small gravel sand bottom is where the fish will set up. So that's your main, that's what you're looking for. The other part of the equation is where they're coming from. And again, they're coming from deep water, deep, slow water pools with structure on the bottom or at the heads of those pools to prevent them from getting blown out when the river, comes way up in the wintertime when we have lots of rain. And that those places exist where you have a lot of, creek confluences. So a lot of those bigger creeks, when they enter the river, you end up what amounts to a wintering pool. So some of those fish in that wintering pool will move up. So if you can sort of locate the wintering pools, and then you can find good spawning habitat in the lower ends of some of those bigger tributaries, you can sort of understand the routes that those fish are going to be moving on in that pre-spawn period. And then once they get set up, once we're in that 60 to 70 degree water temp range, you'll probably be able to see them nesting and doing what they do during the spawn. And that's a really cool time to be out and about observing. So that's what I would recommend. But there's not one creek that just, has smallmouth spawning in it in the springtime. It's more of a general thing, and they're just going to move throughout the watershed to find what they need.
Got it. And, folks, we love questions on the articulate fly. You can email them to us or shoot them to us on our Facebook or Instagram page. If we use your question, I'll send you some articulate fly swag, and then you'll get entered into a drawing for some cool stuff at the end of the season from Matt. And speaking of drawing for cool stuff, the 2020 season is over, and we announced what we were going to draw for last time. But Matt, why don't you remind folks before I give you the name?
Yeah, so I'm putting together a little fly box full of, sort of my go-to smallmouth flies from any given year. And then, of course, that'll come with stickers from me and Reilly Rod Crafters, and then we're going to give away a 50% off coupon for any of our rods that are available on the website as well.
Yeah, that's super generous, and the lucky winner is Tony Rushing. So, Tony, congratulations. I will pass along your contact information to Matt, and, keep your eye on the mailbox. Yeah, absolutely. Sure. And, of course, again, it's 2021, and got to keep the tradition alive. So what are you writing these days?
So the column this week that came out was called Tying for Spring, but it's kind of just a quick little essay that I wrote about, sort of sitting at the fly tying desk like we've been doing a lot the last couple of weeks, and, tying smallmouth flies and thinking about smallmouth fishing. So it's nothing terribly informative or anything, but it might be worth a read if you're interested.
Absolutely, and I will drop a link to that in the show notes.
Awesome.
Yeah, and folks, we're in that kind of trough of the wintertime, but the days are definitely getting longer, and time spent at the Vice will be well rewarded. So sit down and tie a few dozen, watch a football game. I guess there's only one football game left to watch, maybe a little college basketball, and get ready for the spring. Tight lines, everybody. Tight lines, Matt.
All right. Thanks, Marvin.